Kiyani. I'm a broadcast journalist and TV producer, and I've got around 25 years experience working in TV, over 25 years actually, and across radio and film. And I'm at the stage in my career now where I want to put that to good use and be of service. And so I've created a resource for young people who've got an interest in media. And that resource is a series of interviews I'm doing with industry professionals across a wide range of job roles. Now, my guests will share their experiences of what it means to be in that job role, but also they'll share how they got into this industry and the highs and lows. And of course, they'll give really invaluable advice to all of you who want to get into TV, radio, and film. I invite you to join me and my guests each week and learn for yourself how they did it and how they ended up with such a successful career. And perhaps you can do the same for yourself. Now, it's time for me to introduce my guest. He's an award-winning TV director. He's a self-shooting series producer and director, and also a director of photography. Welcome, Peter Demetris.
Hi, Samina.
Peter, it's really good to have you. Now, currently, you're working on some really popular TV shows, which are broadcast on Channel 4, How to Lose Weight Well and Escape to the Chateau DIY. I mean, this is fantastic. They're hugely popular, as I said earlier. And this is right now in your career, but where did your career start and why did you choose TV?
Well, I didn't really choose TV, actually. TV kind of chose me. I was at high school, and at that stage in my life, I was very interested in audio engineering and sound mixing. And I was working with a band in high school and mixing their PA and recordings and things like that. And then it wasn't until later in high school I got interested in video, because they had a video camera, which in those days, I was brought up in Australia, by the way, you might have picked my accent. And in Australia, we didn't have just a little bit, yeah. We didn't have a great deal of modern technology. And there was this kind of steam powered camera that they had. It was black and white, actually, and recorded onto a great big reel to reel tape machine, and in terrible quality. And I was actually in the school debating team, and I thought it would be a good idea if I took this camera and this recorder and I recorded our debates, and then we could analyze them afterwards and see how well or how bad we did in debating. So I started filming stuff with this camera, and I had an interest in photography. My father was an amateur photographer, and I'd had my father's film camera in my hands quite a lot and waved that about and used his stills camera. And I think I had my own stills camera.
You were experimenting. You discovered something you were interested in, and you just started messing around and discovering things for yourself. So you're not formally trained in that way.
No. In fact, I was going to do electronic engineering, and I got into university to do electronic engineering. And then I'd written to all the TV stations in Melbourne and saying I wanted a job in TV. And I didn't know what people in TV did. And I thought, well, I'm using a camera, let's be a cameraman. So I wrote to them all and said, I'd like to be a cameraman. And they all wrote back with like a cut and paste answer saying, if you want to be a cameraman, you have to start in the mailroom delivering letters to the office. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound like much fun. But one of them actually wrote back a letter and said, your letter's interesting. I like the way you write it. Could you contact us when you finish high school? And I did, and didn't hear anything back. And I signed up to do electronic engineering. And then I was in that sort of gap between high school and university, and I had a job. And I got a telephone call saying, could you come in for an interview? This is Channel 7. And
fantastic. So how old were you at that stage?
Well, I would have been 18.
18.
I'd literally just come out of high school.
With this, what was the role that you got then when you began?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So by the time I got into the interview, I decided that now I got my foot in the door. I really want to do audio. I really want to be a sound engineer. I wanted to be a mixer. And I got in, I met the boss, and a guy called Graham Foster, who sadly just passed away. And Graham said to me, I said, Graham, I want to work in the audio department. He said, I'm going to offer you a job as one of our trainees. We've got 6 trainees coming on, and we'll start you in a department and we'll move you around each department. And we're going to give you, put you into a department. Where would you like to go? And I said, I'd like to go into the audio department. He said, I'm terribly sorry. We've got someone already in that department. We'll put you in the vision department as a studio vision technician or assistant. They called them VAs, vision assistants, and you'll do that instead. And I thought, well, this is disappointing.
How wonderful though, because these very rare to get offered. What role do you want?
I know. I hadn't thought how fortunate I was at the time, but now I realise I was.
Yeah. So tell me, you were now like studio vision assistant.
Yep.
So you'd been messing around on the cameras and knew a bit audio. You know, young people watching today may well want to follow you, you know, follow a similar route to you, or they may well find themselves involved going down the studio route. I mean, I went down the studio route. Does it require, is it a necessary part of this learning in studio to be technically minded or have some technical knowledge? Is that necessary?
I think it helps a lot. And I think, I think the short answer is yes, because television and film and even radio, by its very nature, there's a technical side to it, and it's good to have a grasp of that. I mean, the good thing is that nowadays most of it's done on computers. So if you've sat at home and you've used your PC or your Mac to do anything that involves video or audio, you'll soon find that in television it's pretty much the same, except it's obviously bigger bits of kit and everything's, you know, much larger. But apart from that, it's, you know, as long as you have some technical skills, it's helpful. But I think it's also good to have a creative eye, so to have a sort of vision for things and sort of think visually, particularly in television, not so much in radio. Thinking visually in radio, probably not a good thing. But although some people do say you have to sort of picture things when you're working in radio, and that helps.
It helps. It all helps to have a creative mind. Yeah,
it does. So I think having some technical skills is helpful, and it shouldn't be scary to anybody. I think it's the least. You know, working in film, television, radio, actually the technical side, once you sort of get your head around it, it's not that difficult when it works. It's actually more about working with people and people management and people skills and getting to know, you know, getting to work with people and, you know, understand how to work as a team. So the technical side, it's important, but not as important as teamwork.
But you can get your head around it. Yeah, I think once, you know, it takes practice as well, doesn't it? Now, how did you make that transition from this studio assistant, if you like, to director, and what challenges came your way? And obviously, more importantly, you know, how did you overcome them? How did you manage them?
Well, I got bored as a vision assistant very quickly. I picked it up very fast. I'm a bit of a fast learner, and I ended up within the space of a few months running studio galleries while the technical director went outside for a fag, which he tend to do every 10 minutes. And so I got bored with doing that, and I wanted to know about other departments. So I made friends, and again, it's all about relationships. I made friends in other departments. So I made friends with a guy in VT, an editor in videotape, and I learned how to edit. He showed me how to edit. I made friends with a guy in the sound department. He showed me how to operate the audio mixer. I made good friends in the lighting department and learned how to light. And friends in the camera department learned how to shoot. And by learning all these different skills, I became very multi-skilled. But that wasn't the thing that really catapulted me into directing. What happened is that the TV station in Australia bought some really nice new equipment. And because in Australia we are so remote and there was very little opportunity to have any new equipment that you bought, and it was coming from America, you didn't get much sort of product support from the manufacturer. The engineers, very clever engineers, took this equipment into their office, set it up and got it working, and then sat around pushing it and prodding it and reading the instruction manuals for about 3 months. And everyone was very frustrated in the production department because they wanted to get their hands on this new kit. So I made friends with one of the engineers there, Peter, and I said, look, Peter, when you're at lunch or maybe at the end of the day when you go home, can I have access to the engineering office and play with this kit? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So he let me in, and I spent, obviously at the time I had no girlfriend, so I wasn't doing it. I had nothing to distract me. And so I was spending late nights on my own in this engineering office, pressing the button going, what does that do? Well, that does that. And so eventually the engineers installed this equipment, stuck it in the gallery, and the directors—
And you're the only one able to work it, right?
Exactly. They brought the instruction manual and it was like that, put it on the desk and said, there you go. And the director said, I got no idea how to use this. And we got a news transmission in 4 hours. How are we going to get this thing on air? Does anyone know how this box works?
Peter puts his hand up. Yeah.
Peter puts his hand up. And that was it. So I became a vision mixer very quickly. And what happens in Australia, directors, vision mixer is the guy who cuts the cameras and presses the buttons for the director. In Australia, the directors generally vision mix their own programs.
And vision mixing, of course, is cutting between different cameras. So you can have multiple camera shoot and you choose which camera you want. And, you know, it's seamless. It tells a story in that way live.
I couldn't have done it better myself. So I mean, that's perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Thank
And so I was a vision mixer, but one of the bean counters from upstairs came down and looked in the gallery one day and saw me pressing the buttons, and the director sitting to me next to me, telling me what to do. And he said, "Why isn't there two people doing one person's job?" And they said, "Well, the director doesn't know how to use this new vision mixing device, the panel." And he said, "Well, why doesn't the bloke who's pressing the buttons just do the directing as well?" And that's kind of how I ended up directing. Yeah.
Do you know what's really important about this story is the initiative you took. So can you talk about, like, to the young people who want to get into our business, like the importance of taking initiative for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think you have to make yourself indispensable. You have to create a niche for yourself, no matter what it is. And it may not be the first thing you want to do, but it's really important to sort of, make time, take time, and do things yourself in your own time. Don't expect, sort of turn up on site and say, well, I want to do this. Can you train me? I want to be a director. Can you train me? No one's probably going to do that for you. But if you turn up on site and you say, well, I know how that works, and I've used one of those, and can I have a go? And people will, operators, camera operators, vision mixers, directors, they love teaching people. And so if you're on a set and you're with, you get that opportunity to be with people who are operating these pieces of equipment you have an interest in, make friends with them, number one, and then ask them, look, can you show me how this works? I have some sort of knowledge. The worst thing, of course, is don't assume you know everything. If you've done
even at our stage of our careers, Peter, don't assume you know everything.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
You never stop learning.
Exactly.
And so the people who don't tend to last very long in this industry, and if you are looking for a career, you should be playing the long game, never just what's my next job, what's my job in 25 years. That's what you should be thinking about. Don't walk in and say, well, look, I've done a media course and I know how to use that camera back to front and I'm an expert in it. Chances are you're probably not.
Well, by industry standards, they won't be an expert on it unless they've been doing it 20 odd years and have discovered something radically new, So for those interested, and a lot of young people I meet, they find this role very appealing. It's like front and center and delegating, TV director. It's quite appealing role. A lot of people are interested in doing this. So for the young people watching today, what are the fundamentals they need to know? And also what kind of person they need to be in this pivotal role? And it is a pivotal role.
Yes, well, it's very sexy. I think someone always said to me that TV directing is quite sexy. I never thought of that, but apparently some people think it is. But I think the key thing is, you've got to be a team player, and your job is, obviously you can't turn up like Cecil B. DeMille, famous director who...
I think some of the younger crew might not know who that is.
Yes,
so.
Look it up on Google it. He's a very famous director.
Yours.
Yeah. You can't turn up like you're a top flight director on your first day and start stamping your feet and pushing around. You see these people, you see these scenes in films where the director's kind of shouting at people. And that's a very unrealistic way of the way directors work. We're much more sort of inclusive, I think, and we try to be sort of team players and bring people on board. If you bring the crew with you, they'll walk over broken glass. And so you've got to bring everyone on board, and you've got to be like their best friend, but also a kind of a mentor and a kind of guiding light. And you will have the final say, but if you've got an experienced crew, one of the best things is sort of letting them do what they do best. And saying, you're fantastic.
And I have to say, I can attest to that because I've worked with Peter numerous occasions, and he is really there is no, even though he's boss on the shoots, you don't feel like he's the boss. And I think that's a great environment to work in. And bravo to you, Peter. You do that exceptionally well. Now, I just want to move on to a project you worked on in 2017 with the very, very talented Hollywood actor, Woody Harrelson.
Oh, yeah.
On his groundbreaking live film called Lost in London. I mean, this was a really unusual project. How did you get involved, and how did you, more importantly, make it work?
How long have we got? This could be a long story.
Version, please.
I'll give you the short version. So my good friend Vicky Betty Havas, a live producer, rang me one day and said, I've got this Hollywood star. He wants to make a feature film. He wants to make a live feature film. And I want to bring you on board. He wants to do it in one shot. He thinks he can do it in one shot, but I'm going to tell him he can't. And and I want you to come in and be the live gallery director. And when he suddenly realizes he can't do it in one shot, and it becomes a multi-camera shoot, I want you to direct and vision mix the cameras for it. And I said, yeah, of course I can do that. I'd love to do that. I didn't know it was Woody at the time. She hadn't signed the NDA, I think, at that moment. And so I went to eventually they said I was on board, and they brought me along. And so my role was basically, I think, the last 2 weeks of production to be in the gallery that they built, to be in charge of, the camera outputting the film to 550 cinemas in the USA and one cinema in the UK in London. And so I went with the location manager, David, and he took me on the route that the camera was taking. It starts in a theatre and goes all over London. And as we were walking along, I said to him, this is incredible. I mean, a live feature film and all in one shot. No one's ever done a film in one shot before. And he said, oh, yes, they have. There's a German film that's come out called Victoria. You should watch it. So I went home and watched it, and it's a fantastic film. I recommend anybody who's doing film and television to watch this film because it's incredible. And then after watching it, I realized to myself, well, Woody's seen this one-shot film, and it's a success, and he loves it. He's never going to back down now. What am I doing if I'm coming in as a director? What's my role? Clearly, I'm not going to be vision mixing cameras because there's only one camera. Once I press that button, I can just sit back. So I realized two things. First of all, I realized that the sound department was going to be the complicated bit. So I was going to have to be across that. And there were other things as well. There was opening titles and credits, and there were some captions in the film I had to do. But that was all fairly simple stuff for me. But I turned to the producer, Vicky, and I said, who's making the documentary? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's Woody Harrelson, it's Owen Wilson, it's Willie Nelson, it's a live feature film, all in one shot. The first time it's been done. If it goes well, it's a great doc. If it goes horribly wrong, it's a great doc. Even if none of those things happen, it's still a great doc because you've got those great names in it. And she said, oh, that's a good point. I'll have a chat to Woody. And the next day she called me up and she said, bring your cameras in. You're shooting behind the scenes.
And the rest is history. I mean, again, creating, taking the initiative and creating your own kind of opportunities. I just want to talk to you very briefly about young people watching who are into filmmaking and, starting off at the beginning, budgets are always an issue. So zero budgets, very limited budgets is going to be de facto for young people, or should I say most young people starting. Is that an opportunity or is it a curse?
Both, actually. I think it depends on how you play it. I think if you play it right, it can be an opportunity. If you don't play it well, and I've seen a lot of people who don't play it well, on the forums and things like that, then it can be a curse. I think the key to doing it is generally the person who is making that film is the writer or the director. So it's your vision, and you want to create your vision. And then you realize you have no money, and you're going to have to try and get people to come along for free or very cheap. And so the key to doing that is to make it collaborative, bring them on and make it's your vision, and everyone will respect that. But bring everybody on board with you and make it a team effort. And then again, the people will do anything for you for no money or not much at all. You can get a lot of favors if you just you're humble. And you include everybody and try and
nice. I know if you're nice to people.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's nasty, but I think
some people can be more challenging, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, no, that's true.
Being humble and being nice to people, and also get as many experienced people as you can, because the more experienced people you have, the quicker a project happens. The least experience you have tends to be a lot slower, the production.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key to it. And don't be afraid to ask experienced people. A lot of experienced people out there want to give their advice and help. It's all very well getting, all your friends who have done a film studies course to come on board and help, but they don't have the experience. So if you bring in, say, an experienced camera operator or director of photography, then, and you have got some people who have worked in the camera department who need more experience, they can, work with someone who has got that experience. And and that everything works, it's symbiotic, isn't it? The relationships develop and people learn through experience. Sorry about losing the camera.
Yeah. So just to wrap up the interview, this is what I ask all my guests, but everybody who wants to get involved in TV, radio and film, what's the one best piece of advice that you can give?
Well, you're making it tough for me. So I think I think the best advice is watch TV, watch programs that you like, and if it's radio, listen to radio programs you like. If it's film, watch films that you like, and try and as you watch them, obviously enjoy them, but try and deconstruct them and work out what the parts of it are and what the bits that you might like to contribute in that film. So if you're into, say, wardrobe and costume, then watch a costume drama and see how they, look at what they're wearing and see how the wardrobe mistress has got the right, period costumes and the colors and things like that. If you're into camera, look at the way it's shot. If you're into audio, listen to how the sound mixing has been done. All these there's so many clues there. And the great thing about certainly in film and television, not so much in radio, is you can watch the credits at the end and see who did that job, and then you can Google them and find out their experience, and then you can easily
follow them on social media, and then
exactly
start a conversation with them.
Exactly, yeah. And before if you I wouldn't say don't pester people, because everyone's very busy, but I would say at least make your acquaintance with people, get to know them, and before you know it, you might get a little cheeky invite from somebody saying, well, why don't you? I'm doing a shoot tomorrow. Why don't you pop along and come and help out? Well,
exactly. You never know. Peter, that's sound advice. Also, I'd just like to say thank you so much for your time today. It's been
thank you. Sorry about the camera.
Really interesting. No worries. This is what happens, So thank you, Peter Demetris. As always, if you want to watch my interviews, then please feel free to follow me across my social media platforms and on YouTube, because that's where I post details of who I'm going to be interviewing and when. And I invite you to join me and my guests and get some inspiration for yourself, and get going and get into the TV, radio and film industries. Until next time, I just want to say a huge thanks for watching, and see you soon.